What's up, everyone? Kevin Leslie and solo edition of the At the Thousand Training Podcast. And it's been a minute. We are here, and I can't believe we're already not only in December, but deep into December. And many athletes have been 2 or 3 weeks into their winter training. And we are here as well. If to kind of give you a quick update on what's going on here in the garage before we dive into today's very fun topic. December training kicked off late or last week. So we're 2 weeks in, we're about halfway through the program with our December group and then January group, February group. And it's been an absolute blast. We are packed, full house, 8 ergs, 4 bikes going on a consistent basis. 2 of those sessions per week are lift sessions. And it's been an absolute blast getting athletes who I can work with on a day in, day out basis. And eventually they're going to go back to their programs and hopefully they're taking their skills right to their on the water performances, so on and so forth. But it's an absolute blast to get athletes in the garage daily, every day. And we kind of can form this team and learn how to truly push our fitness forward, learn how to get comfortable with the erg, and learn how to truly make every stroke count and own our numbers. And then turn around and make that, focus on athletic foundation and weight training and building the athlete with both stuff that's going to help with performance and durability. And then on the weekends, Saturday's race day, right? We're doing 2Ks, we're doing rate structure, exposure to the 2K distance, all these different things, because it's that time of year where we can start to turn our attention to our race specific type, both fitness and execution. And it's been an absolute blast. And soon December program will be done. And some of these athletes will go back to their high school program for winter training. And then a few more athletes are going to actually come back in. And then a few new athletes in January and then in February. So anyway, that's an update on the garage. It's been an absolute blast because I cherish the opportunities where I can work with athletes on a daily basis versus online or, in the one-off session per week where they're in the garage. So absolute blast. I don't take those opportunities for granted. And we have a long winter ahead with a lot of work to come. So anyway, with that, how do you drop 30 seconds in your 2K in one winter? And I guarantee many of you clicked on this podcast solely because of that title, how to drop 30 seconds off your 2K this winter. Because yes, whether we like it or not, that's our sport. And I'm definitely someone who errs on the side of I don't love that being the driving force in our sport because I didn't row in high school. I know a lot of athletes who had incredible college success and beyond who didn't row in high school. But it is the nature of what we do where a lot of this sport is centered around one particular number, and that's the number that these athletes are hearing day in and day out, whether it's from college coaches, their high school coaches, their parents who read this on articles and say, hey, we have to do this score because we want to get scholarships and all this. So it is a big piece to the focus of the winter season, like it or not. And because it is, I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. Because I think at the end of the day, one of the things, right, how to drop 30 seconds off your 2K this winter, right? First and foremost, I guarantee, and this was a newsletter that I wrote, right? That's where all this stemmed from. It was a newsletter that I wrote, went out maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. You can, subscribe to the newsletter below. I'll also put a link to the article that I put on the website, right? And turn it into a blog post and post it on social media. But this was an article. The reason I wrote this, or the reason I brought this up, because this is something that comes up in every conversation I have with high school athletes, every single one. And a lot of it is driven by, again, whether it's 30 seconds or I got to get a 4-second jump to 7:30 or 6 minutes or 6:30, whatever it may be. This is always going to be a conversation that's relevant, and I think a lot of it is maybe pushed by the college coaches, which if you listen to some of the former episodes is not actually always the case, right? A lot of college coaches look for things other than 2K. But I think a lot of athletes, all they hear is 2K. A lot of parents, all they hear is 2K, and they think it's a lot easier than it really is, which is a whole nother podcast. But it is that number that comes up very frequently, or actually always. And we center a lot of our training and a lot of our development around 2,000 meter performance. With that being said, first and foremost, 30 seconds off your 2K. I guarantee someone listening to this episode will drop 30 seconds off their 2K this winter. I guarantee it. And in reality, it's probably a sophomore, right? It's probably a sophomore who started rowing as a freshman and they came in and their 2K is 8:40 from freshman year and they drop that thing down to an 810 as a sophomore because they're, I'm talking more high school girl, right? High school guy, right? Maybe you're 730 and you drop it down to a 650, right? And in reality, it usually happens sophomore year because you have a big growth spurt. You have a little bit more savviness on the erg and with your endurance training. And genetics wise, you just happen to make that massive jump, right? It has minimal to do with anything outside of pure the natural path within rowing, right? And development as a person. So someone's going to drop 30 seconds. Most of us will not. If you are 2 or 3 years in, right? Second half of sophomore year, you are a junior, or maybe you're heading into your senior, or maybe you're a senior. Chances are dropping 30 seconds on your 2K this winter won't happen. Why? Because first off, that's a ridiculous amount of time. 30 seconds for a moderately trained athlete, 5 to 10 seconds can be a good improvement, right? Hey, I went from 645 to breaking 630, or sorry, to breaking 640, right? Now I'm in the mid 630s. I went, 755 last year as a high school girl, and now I'm in the, high 740s, right? 5 to 10 seconds can be a challenge because the faster you get, the harder those seconds become. So when the narratives float around of, hey, I have an athlete who is here and I need them to be here, and that difference is 30 seconds, the likelihood of that happening for most athletes is not, it's not, right? It can't. And the primary reason for that, or I think the issue with that really is we put that expectation on ourselves that we have to be here, but we don't understand the work that we need to do in order to best position ourselves to have an outcome like that, which again, every athlete is going to be different. And there are going to be some athletes who are very well trained and they have a little bit of more savviness to their training and their rowing and their ability to compete. And they worked massively hard in the fall and stayed on the erg and all these different things. And that athlete's going to put themselves, they're going to have a shot, right? To say a 740 high school girl, actually, no, they're not going to go down to 710, but to say an 8-minute high school girl can't have a massive winter and get down to the low 730s, I don't know, right? But more than likely, it's not going to happen for a lot of athletes out there. And that's okay. The question is, how far can you go? And the reality is, if you're a sophomore or below, your 2K should be the last thing that enters your mind this winter. Sophomore or below, I am so adamant about this. Focus on getting better at rowing. Focus on developing the passion for the sport. Focus on learning how to row the machine with, and this is going to be something that we talk about here in a minute, but focus on learning how to row the machine with so much confidence that, again, the development on the erg and all these different things is a byproduct of that, right? And that's another thing we'll talk about here in a second. So for sophomores out there, right? For freshmen out there especially, 2K shouldn't even be in the conversation because you're not that good as a rower yet. You're not that good as an endurance athlete yet. And I say that because I want you to understand that if we are, and parents especially should understand this, if you're in the mindset of my son or daughter or myself as a sophomore should be X here for 2K, we're putting the destination ahead of learning how to be a good endurance athlete, ahead of learning how to be a good athlete in general, a well-foundationed, that makes sense, a structurally sound athlete who can withstand the demands that rowing requires to best position themselves for a successful junior, a successful senior, and 4 years at the college level. And rowing is one of those sports where if you get very focused on the destination of 2K and everything else goes to the wayside, technique, core stability, learning how to pace yourself, all these different things. Yeah, you may get there, but the question is at what cost? So again, I caution sophomores and below, and some juniors, to be honest, but mostly those sophomores and below, and especially freshmen, especially freshmen, have that mindset of, I'm just trying to get better at rowing. I'm trying to get better at pacing. I'm trying to learn how to actually appreciate this machine that is the erg, that is going to be the gateway to future opportunity when I am a junior or senior. I got to learn how to like it first, and then it's going to be that much easier come the future. Anyway, with that being said, all right, we all clicked on this for a reason. And let me get into my 3 biggest things that athletes can focus on to best position themselves for a 30-second PR this winter. Again, likelihood aside, but to best position themselves for 30-second PR. And I'm speaking mostly towards high school athletes, maybe even newer masters athletes, whatever it may be. But I think the market or the centerpiece of this is going to mostly be, right, the people who are listening is going to be mostly those high school athletes, right? So the first one is exactly what I just said. To best position yourself for a big 2K improvement this winter, first and foremost, get better at rowing, get better at being an endurance athlete. And what I wrote in the post was, if your rowing stroke sticks out from the riverbanks, right? I'm here in Philadelphia, from the Schuylkill River, or most of the racing is on the Schuylkill River here in Philly, right on, along Boathouse Row. If I can tell from the riverbanks that this athlete's brand new to rowing, 2K shouldn't even enter their mind. Rowing is a sport about synchrony, about rowing together, about fitting in and moving a boat as best you can. And in order to do that, yeah, we all have to row, or the stroke is not that complicated. We have to learn how to row the stroke competently. And that's where it starts. And really what I mean by that is technique. It starts with technique, because technique is not only going to help with efficiency with rowing, it's also going to help you stay healthy enough to row effectively for long durations and also at intensity. So that's the first one, right? Focus on becoming a better rower and even better endurance athlete. That's what I wrote here, right? So rower is technique, right? Focusing on being a better rower. Better endurance athlete is learning how to truly have the skill set and the body awareness to get comfortable at the foundational type work, the 80%, if you listen to one of the podcasts a while back, right, talking about actually the physiology behind 2K development, learning how to actually own low rate, long and power per stroke type workouts, right? Can you lock in and row 20 minutes straight at an 18, where that number, right, whether it's 20 splits above 2K PR or it's, 10 splits above your 5K PR, can you row 20 minutes straight through at one number, right? Where the difference is the variability of that, right? Say it's like 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Can you row 2-minute and 20-second splits 90% of your strokes, right? Maybe it's 219, 221, 220, 220, 220, 219, 221, 220, 220, right? Like, can you lock in and own the boring? Because that's the fundamental, right? You have to learn how to accumulate volumes of work, the 15 minutes straight, the 20 minutes straight, the 40 to 60 minutes straight of steady state. You have to learn how to own that stuff. And if you can't row 10 strokes without that split, dropping 5 splits and then going up 10 or 5 splits and then going back down, if you can't row the same stroke every single time, it comes back to working on your technique, and it comes back to learning how to actually put in lower intensity volume before you start to stack bricks on top of an unstable foundation. I think that's the real piece I should have got to first, right? You don't want to be stacking bricks on an unstable foundation where the person, their body, they can't row well enough to be efficient and sustain, and potentially can get hurt, but also they don't know how to actually truly lock in and own the boring numbers, right? And own the lower intensity work, the 18 to 20 strokes per minute, and being able to sustain that for 40 to 60 minutes. That should be where your focus lies, right? Now, the next piece of that. So if you're listening to this now and you feel like you pass that, right? Your stroke doesn't stick out from the riverbanks, and you know how to lock in for 10,000 meters straight at an 18 at one number, then you now move on to phase 2, right? Phase 2 is work harder than you are today. If you're part of a winter training group, right, or your high school program, and you guys train 5 days per week, which a lot of them do, right? You train 5 days per week, 2 of which are circuit training with dumbbells, 1 of which or 2 of which are running, right? Going outside and going for a run, and 2 of which are on the erg, right? That's your 5 sessions, 6 sessions, whatever it may be, but you're only on the erg 2 or 3 times throughout that week. You're not doing enough rowing specific work to really move the needle forward. We get better on the erg by being on the erg, right? That's something that I say all the time. We get better on the erg, or the number one way to get better on the erg is by being on the erg. And if you want to make a significant jump like that, you got to spend time, right? You got to put time in on the machine. And many of us don't do it in the fall, which I have podcasts about, right? We should always be erging, but especially in the winter, take the time, right? It doesn't have to be 100% of your training, and it shouldn't be, right? That's why 2 days per week in the garage, we're doing strength training. It's a massive piece to what we do. We got to learn how to build an athletic foundation that can withstand the heavy demands of rowing long term. So a very important piece has to be strength training. Cross training is a massive piece to a balanced program. That's why we have 4 erg bikes in the garage. Erg bike could be a separate podcast, but it's my favorite cross training tool for rowers because it teaches a lot of the same principles, but the barrier to entry is much lower. So learning how to use a Concept 2 erg bike or whatever machine that you can. So cross training is a massive piece. But in order to get better on the erg, you got to be on the erg, right? And where does that fit into the total, right? How many sessions per week, right? If you're training, and I always say, aim for 7 to 9 purposeful sessions in your week. You have your 6 sessions with the team, and now you have 1 to 3 additional sessions that you're doing on your own. Or maybe if you guys train 5 days a week, you have your 5 sessions with your team, 2 of which are lifts, 1 of which is a run, 2 of which are erging. Okay, well, if I want 50% of my sessions to be on the erg, I'm adding in 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 additional erg sessions into my week. But I'm trying to average that 7 to 9, which I think is a good balance for athletes, right? You're throwing in a couple doubles, but you're not doing so much where you're going to be getting to point number 3, burning out. But you're doing enough that can move the needle forward, right? You're doing enough prep work and intensity, but you're also logging meters and getting back to point number 1, learning how to sustain speed for long durations. Massive, massive piece. Start with number 1, right? Endurance athlete, rowing technique, then move on to number 2, increase your capacity, work a little harder, right? Because that's another big piece. Number 3, all right? And this one, again, you get through number 1, you get through number 2. Number 3, I think can kind of be blended into all of them, but be athletic and not just with rowing. And I think that's a very important one, right? If you listen to some of the more recent podcasts, a lot of coaches look for kids who are well-rounded athletes. And yeah, some people, like, they want rowing. Rowing is a very important piece to their life. So they want to do a winter training program. I obviously encourage, a lot of athletes who aren't doing a winter sport to do a winter training program. But if you're playing basketball or swimming, go and do that, right? Like, be athletic, own it, rock on, because I guarantee you will learn a new skill set that will be an asset to your rowing career long-term. And there's a reason why or actually, let me back up here a second. The number one thing that stops 2K progress is a lack of motivation or feeling of burnout. Number 1. And it happens to a lot of people in the winter because you come back to number 2, right? Which again, I caution myself with saying that, right? Work harder. A lot of people can put themselves in a situation where they're dreading walking into that erg room, right? Or they're getting a lot of influence from outside, sources and things like that, where they have to be on the erg 7 to 9 times per week. Then all their life has to be consumed by rowing. And this could happen in the fall, in the winter, or in the spring. And now they go to sit down and do a piece and they're just absolutely dreading being in that atmosphere, right? So that's a very real thing. And a lack of motivation, or a feeling of burnout, yeah, you're gonna hit a plateau very quickly. So figure out ways to incorporate different athletic endeavors into your overall training routine. Maybe it's playing another sport. Maybe it's joining a club, right? Maybe you're doing club basketball or club swimming along with your rowing training, right? If you're only doing 5 days a week with your rowing team, go out and do one, right? A lot of this is contrary to number 2, and that's okay, right? I don't care, right? Kind of think about how you can formulate it all for long-term success. But being athletic is something that I think a lot of athletes should truly learn how to own. And a lot of that, if you are doing an organized winter training program and you are going all in on rowing, which I don't think is a bad thing either, don't get me wrong. You are going all in on rowing because that's your number 1 option. That's your passion. That's what you want to pursue. Make sure that you're incorporating strength training and athletic movements into your routine, right? That's a non-sport related way to stay athletic, right? It's a training way to stay athletic, to build foundation, to learn how to do squats and hinges and different core stability exercise and stuff like that, right? That can preserve the structure in the body and allow you to kind of keep moving forward without burning the needle too hot or burning the candle too hot on the rowing front. So that's another big one, right? As I scroll down here, right? And again, like learning how to have this athletic versatility, right? And there's a reason why the basketball player or the swimmer come back after barely erging all winter long, and come March, they absolutely smoke 3/4 of the room on the erg because they learned this new athletic skill set and they stayed energized. Rowing is now exciting to them entering March, right? Rather than being this drag for 3 or 4 months, which it doesn't have to be, but it can be. And for many of you listening, it probably will be. But how do you manage that in the situation, right? Are you doing additional strength training and things like that, right? And for those athletes who are doing other sports, well, guess what? If you want to truly see new heights, maybe you are incorporating the erg on top of those other sports, right? If you are a basketball player and you're practicing 5 days a week, well, maybe your conditioning is now on the erg, right? You're getting on your erg 2 times a week, right? If you're a swimmer, okay, well, are you balancing 1 or 2 erg sessions that only complement your aerobic base with swimming? So there's a lot that we can talk about there, but at the end of the day, my number one message is 2K score development should be a byproduct of the 3 topics above. It shouldn't be the primary motivation, because that having it be that primary motivation leads to it being the only motivation. And then once we achieve that motivation, now where do we go? Are we burnt out? Are we healthy enough to actually continue to row in college and be successful? Which, in my opinion, that's why this business exists, or that's why this platform exists, right? I want to help athletes be 4-year contributors at the college level. That's what I'm passionate about, helping you learn the skill sets now so that you can take them with you and reap the same rewards that I did as a college rower. Like that's what this whole brand is about. And again, if you only think about the destination and you don't develop a passion for training and a passion for growth and development, and the rowing is just the vehicle that you move through, right? I don't know what I'm saying here, right? But that's what you want to think about, right? Develop that passion, develop that passion for training, that passion for rowing and winning races. And the 2K will be a byproduct of those different things. It shouldn't be at the forefront of your performances, especially if you're a younger athlete, I can't stress that one enough. So anyway, there you have it. This was a long one. This was my longest solo episode. I think we're at 22 minutes, but this is one that I'm really passionate about. Again, do I like 2K being the centerpiece to rowing training and motivation? No, I don't. I do think there's more to this sport. Learning how to truly love training and working hard and doing it together. But it is, and because 2K is a centerpiece, we got to talk about it. But how do we set athletes up for long-term success? That's the main idea. Anyway, with that being said, if you like this episode, if this was helpful for you, please rate it. You can even review it. You can, leave a 5-star review. That'd be awesome. Share it and all these different things. Help us grow. We got big 2025 coming up. We got more guests coming on. It's an absolute blast. And this is a fun topic. I will talk to you soon. I got about 2 hours till practice starts with the December training group. Good luck as you move through December. Happy holidays. We'll have another episode before then, so that's premature, but whatever. Happy holidays. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.